Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a totally fascinating mystery, one that literally bridges the gap between ancient history, deep human biology, and, believe it or not, cutting-edge modern algorithms. We're going on this wild micro to macro journey that's honestly going to completely change how you view the past. Let's get right into it. So I want to start off by posing this central question to you. How exactly can one person's DNA contain the legacy of a Welsh witch, the structural genius of an Alpine architect, and the strategic foresight of a Khazar oracle? I know, right? It sounds like the setup to some crazy fantasy epic. But what if I told you this isn't fiction at all? This is verifiable, hard genetic data. Let's unlock this puzzle. Well, it all comes together in the year 1974. That's the birth year of Vadim Chernov, a geologist and inventor. We're going to be decoding his genome today. Why? Because his DNA represents what we could basically call a genetic singularity. It's this absolutely unique convergence of four incredibly distinct, historically resilient bloodlines. Bloodlines that all somehow survived against all odds to manifest in just this one individual. Chapter 1: The Human Time Capsule. Okay, so to really grasp this concept, we need to talk about the idea of a genetic palimpsest. You see, a human genome isn't just this simple biological blueprint for, your eye color or how tall you are. It can actually act as a literal time capsule. Now, if you're not familiar, a palimpsest is usually an ancient parchment where the original text has been scraped away so someone could write something new on top of it. But the old historical layers, they still faintly bleed through. I am so pumped to share that Vadim's DNA acts exactly like this. The historical layers haven't been completely overwritten by time at all. Instead, perfectly preserved biological texts from ancient times have survived completely intact, bleeding right through into our modern era. It's like a biological ghost story, but it's real science. Chapter 2: The Atlantic Shield. So heading into the deep, misty roots of the British and Welsh genetic substrate, our visual motif for this specific maternal line is the Grac. In ancient Welsh mythology, the Grac is a crone who literally shaped the physical mountain landscape. The myth says she dropped actual boulders to form the earth. But more importantly for us, she represents this unyielding, fierce resistance to all assimilation. Basically, she couldn't be conquered because she was rooted directly in the Atlantic Earth itself. And this mythological resistance, it perfectly mirrors an absolutely incredible biological reality. Normally, over 50 generations, so we're talking stretching all the way back to early medieval Britain, a genetic segment would highly fragment. It just dissolves due to normal genetic recombination. But get this. There's a massive anomaly on chromosome 22. It's an 11.1 centimorgan block. You can think of that as a really large genetic measuring stick. It contains 324 specific markers, or SNS, and here is the crazy part. It has survived 100% intact. We're talking a direct, monolithic match to an ancient DNA sample known to scientists as Oakington-04. Mathematically speaking, this kind of monolithic survival literally should not exist after 50 generations. Yet here it is. So the real question here is, why on earth did this specific genetic block survive? Well, it turns out it's anchored in the IGL locus, which is the immunoglobulin lambda gene. This specific area controls our adaptive immunity. So, over the centuries, was busy filtering out deadly pathogens and plagues. It acted as an unyielding biological fortress. The logic here is just beautiful when you think about it. This genetic block survived because it was a powerhouse immune shield. It perfectly mirrors the unyielding protective nature of that mythical Welsh rack we just talked about. Chapter 3: The Alpine Architects. All right, shifting gears from the maternal side over to the paternal axis. We are trading the physical, biological resistance of the Atlantic for the structural, mathematical genius of the Alps. And this brings us to the RU152 DNA bloodline. We can trace the tragic but absolutely incredible journey of these Alpine architects. Specifically, we're looking at the Domenico Trezzini clan, a family of master builders. Back in 1555, facing severe persecution by the Inquisition in Locarno, Italy, many of these Protestants and Valdenses had to flee across the freezing Alps. But even before that, way back in the 13th and 14th centuries, Western artisans with this exact genetic lineage were highly sought after. They were actually recruited by the vast Mongol Empire for their totally unmatched engineering skills. And the result of that massive migration is brilliantly illustrated by what they left behind. In the Insubria region near Lake Como, you have these alpine tower houses, rigid masonry structures that were built as ultimate status symbols for families. But then, thousands of miles away, in the highly active seismic zones of Donba and Sichuan, we see the Himalayan star towers. These things feature a totally unique 12-pointed star shape and actively integrate timber with stone. These alpine architects literally took their stone code structural all the way to the Tibetan marches to build skyscrapers that could survive massive earthquakes. I mean, how cool is that? Now, the science behind these towers is just staggering. That star-shaped configuration, it's not just decorative. It acts as a literal seismic filter. The geometry itself, those outward points, actually prevents the destructive wave frequencies of earthquakes from tearing the building apart. Plus, they used advanced mineral additives like hydraulic lime, which is perfect for setting in cold weather. Because of this genius engineering, these structures have survived for up to 1,600 years, and that's even when they were built on 80 meters of loose geological deposits. They basically engineered a mathematical way to disrupt chaos. Chapter 4. Oracles of the Steppe. So let's explore this third major bloodline by unpacking Vadim's Ural autosomal DNA. This was passed down from his grandmother, who is affectionately known as Babusia Tamusia. The breakdown shows 21.2% Finno-Ugric and 3.8% Khazar-Kabar ancestry. The absolute crucial point here is that this line brings a massive 25% autosomal anchor of pure steppe resilience. But what's super interesting is what's missing. Jewish DNA is completely absent. It sits at exactly 0%. So despite the famous historical link of Khazar elites converting to Judaism, this specific lineage points directly to the deep indigenous Turkic-Ugric steppe elite. These were the Kabar clans, the ones who maintained the really ancient ways. And one of the most powerful of those ancient ways was a practice called scapulomancy. The female Khazar oracles, known as Khums, used this intense shamanic method of burning sheep bones. They would literally burn the bone and then read the resulting cracks and structural deformations. Basically, they were reading the physical evidence of heat stress to predict and navigate the vast, unpredictable chaos of the steppe. It wasn't just magic to them, it was a highly strategic, almost analytical way to guide military and diplomatic decisions. Chapter 5. Decoding the Modern World. All right, let's bring all these ancient historical threads together and see how they synthesize into a very real, modern technological breakthrough. It builds step by step. First, you have the Khazar practice of reading physical cracks to predict chaos. Second, you've got the Alpine star towers using pure geometry to disrupt destructive seismic energy. And third, bringing it to today, we have the RALF1 algorithm. This is a modern hybrid geofilter used to filter digital anomalies. Do you see the connection here? It's incredible. The physical survival traits of his ancestors, reading chaos and filtering destruction, literally became the exact data survival traits of his modern algorithm. It's the ancient world mapped onto code. To really understand the power of this RALF1 algorithm, we have to look at a highly complex, chaotic environment. Enter the port of Constanta in Romania. This place is a critical NATO logistics hub. It handles over 100 million tons of cargo every single year. It has 300 kilometers of internal railway tracks and acts as the terminal for a major pan-European oil pipeline. The sheer volume of digital and physical noise going on here is monumental. Honestly, any algorithm trying to find one specific anomaly in all that faces a nearly impossible task. Now recently, a Ukrainian maritime drone actually struck near Pier 78 in this very port. And while the physical damage was highly localized, it caused what we'd call a massive epistemic collapse in the regional data networks. Basically, predictive AI systems were completely overwhelmed. They just lost their ability to make sense of the sudden chaos. Yet in the middle of all that, the RALF1 hybrid geofilter was able to identify this massive anomaly clearly within the port's insanely complex data stream. It completely cut right through the noise. The reason this success is so remarkable comes down to one number: 85. Constantina sits above the 85th percentile for signal-to-noise ratio. Simply put, it is one of the most data-dense environments on the planet. Being able to identify the drone anomaly in this kind of environment, that's the ultimate modern test. It essentially proves that this algorithm functions like a modern-day digital version of that ancient witch-like ability to read the terrain. It filters out all the chaotic, destructive noise to see the pure structural truth hidden right beneath it. Which brings us to our final and maybe most profound takeaway today. History is not just in the past, but is a stone code living actively within human biology and modern technology. We really aren't separate from the people who came before us, are we? Their survival mechanisms, whether that's resisting plagues, surviving earthquakes, or navigating the wild steppe, they are literally echoing in our DNA and in the very tools we are building today. It really leaves you with a fascinating question. What ancient codes might be operating inside your own DNA, quietly influencing the way you navigate your daily life? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep exploring.